most people don't really believe that anybody can do what Nikolai does. How, well, on one of the shows, I went to see Nikolai. I'm just crazy about him. He is so different. And he knew that I had my arm broken, and he knew right where it was, in my shoulder. I've said this on the show before, but I said, oh, Nikolai, he said, do you want me to do something? I said, oh, no, no, no. I was just there, talking to him about something else. I mean, I didn't want to impose upon him. Well, why not? Okay. So in just a few minutes, I could only raise my arm about like that. And I said, oh, Nikolai, I said, I can't, forget it. The doctors told me that I'd never be able to fluff up the back of my hair or anything. So he worked on it a couple of times, and he said, how's that? And I said, oh, it hurts. So he did some more. And pretty soon, it went all the way up. And I told those wretched doctors, but they said, this is just all in your mind. How can you educate people to someone like Nikolai, who's a master? He's a genius. Well, he's more than a genius, right? But how do you go about that to educate people?
Well, I think one of the things that people would have to do, say, is read his books, because the books are created in such a way that they start with very elemental things and they build. And the other thing is that they're programmed, really, by Nikolai, so that the more you read and understand, the more you'll be able to understand later on. And in my mind, that's certainly the best way, because you have his influence actually working on the reader himself.
Are these books available readily?
No. There are some that you can get in Russia, but the ones that he wrote here were self-published. And I think he's trying to set it up so that you can get them, subscribe to them on the web. But that hasn't been achieved yet.
Oh, that would be very good.
But you can read some of his stuff in English on his website, which is levashov.info.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, LEVASHOV.info. And there you'll find exposition of some of his ideas in different languages. You just click on the British flag and you will get an American or an anglicized version.
This is what I'm so intrigued about. When I met Nikolai, I knew he was really different. I mean, really different. And my deceased husband, who was a judge, he said, I don't want to go up there. I don't believe in that. I said, oh, please, please. So after about half an hour talking to Nikolai, my husband said, my God, he said, this guy is kind of believable. I mean, I never thought that George would feel that way. But the thing is, and now I believe in Nikolai, and Grace, much more, has loaned me the book, and I read the book every night. I mean, I haven't gotten past the introduction, but, because I see all those graphs and stuff. I mean, you have to be a physicist, because he is a physicist. Why was he born that way? How was he born that way?
Well,
George?
As far as his spirit is just very evolved. And he was also knowledgeable of that fact and developed himself. He was a very serious student, and he took advantages of the educational system in Russia, which is one of the top in the world. And he really looked under every rock and asked the hard questions. And I remember a story he told when he was in school, and he was asking his biology teacher at the university level now, why cells change. Why do some cells become bone tissue and some cells become neurons and some cells become, the heart muscle? And, the teacher tried to explain it with a simplistic explanation, and Nikolai said, that's what they told us in the 7th grade. Don't you know anything more that you can give me insight with, and then the teacher said, well, don't ask me questions that only God knows the answer to. And to Nikolai, that wasn't a satisfactory answer, and he's a scientist in the truest sense of the word. He just continues to search until he has an answer that makes sense, not only as an individual point, but also about everything else fitting together with it in a system that can explain life.
So it is scientific. There is evidence. And I use the word evidence.
That's very important.
In what way? How would you
Well, it's important to
explain
understand that this is not just something which, that his science, the discoveries that he's made, some of which dovetail with what we already knew, but many which are, really original, startling innovations, that this came not just spouted out of his head, some guy sitting down and, making all of this up, but it was the result of, years of work and of study, and as George mentioned, asking, the hard questions and attempting to find the answers. And in that, he uses his remarkable clairvoyant abilities to see into matter and into life in a way that most people can't, but also used, scientific logic and scientific method in order to come to his conclusions. It's a vast, deep body of knowledge.
Do you think he's from another planet?
I think that that the spirits which make him up, which are part of him, probably have come from other planets. Mm-hmm. George, you may know more information about that than I do.
Well, I just think the world would be a better place if there were more spirits like his on this planet.
Yeah. Could that happen?
I think it's happening.
Do you?
Yes.
But who's learning this, George?
Nikolai's sharing his knowledge all the time with people on a telepathic level and children, and it's his plan and mission to do that. That's why the title of his book is The Final Appeal to Mankind.
What is he doing now in Moscow?
He's just moved back there and getting reacquainted with old friends and family, and getting back to work, building a new base there.
Grace says he goes into the hospitals and helps some of the patients, or whatever patients I'm sure that he has contact with.
I haven't spoken to him about that in particular, so I wouldn't be able to comment.
Yeah, Grace calls him. Do you call him Dick?
3 times a week.
Really? Mm-hmm. What do you ask him? Could you tell us something
Yeah,
personal?
Can you fix this? Well, you see, once I was healed with the chronic fatigue, from the chronic fatigue, I wanted to continue working with him and have my spirit evolved, because he can do that, to the point where I become a more effective healer. So I've continued to work with him, as I said, 3 times a week, in order for him to help me do that.
Mm-hmm. Marcia, how do you use all the knowledge you have now?
Since I don't practice healing, although I've attended his classes, I try to use his knowledge to help me improve the quality of who I am, and which affects the quality of my life and people around me. Mm-hmm. And it's very important to use the knowledge I've gotten from him to make every decision in life, every minute. There's something you can be present about and conscious of that'll help you be a better person, and that moment be the best moment it can be, because we really do have that ability to affect the quality of our life and the experience we're having.
And you're a dancer and an educator?
Well, I used to dance. But
you still look like you dance.
Well, I don't know. I love to move still. And now I'm working with children.
So it does spill over, doesn't it?
Yes.
It really does. It's just hard for people to believe that, and I'm sure there are a lot of other healers that we don't know about, right? But it's so hard. They think it's just a bunch of nonsense, magical stuff that, you know, self-hypnosis that you can do it yourself, but you can't. I mean, without the aid of someone who really is a healer. Don't you agree?
Well, the important thing is to know is that you can only understand what you've been evolved to understand. When you were a child, I mean, there were many, many things that adults around you understood that you could not understand. And you evolve, you change, and as you become an adult, you can now understand those things. Well, there are many different levels of evolution that a person can go through while they're here, you know, incarnate on this planet. And as you evolve yourself by one way or another, with Nikolai it's very rapid, you can understand more, and you can understand more of his stuff. There were things that he taught us as a class that it took me 10 years to understand. All of a sudden, one day, I was reading some of his material. He says, "Oh, that's what he meant by that." And the reason I couldn't understand it before was that I simply didn't have, you know, the apparatus to do that. And I'm sure that there are many, many other things, you know, that he's written about that I don't understand now, that I may never understand, you know, before I die.
Yeah, because we're all born with a certain amount of brain power, really. Like, why are some people musicians and some people are, you know, great intellectuals? Why is that? That people are so different with our brains.
It's because the spirits are different. That's an important point.
The spirit.
Yes, that we all have a spirit.
Okay, I have a really hard question. How would you define spirit?
Well, as part of our organism as a whole, in addition to the physical body, we have what are called, classically even, etheric and astral bodies, and sometimes mental bodies. And these all work in concert with each other and with the physical body in order to sustain us in life. And when we die, it's simply because there's been a detachment of the spiritual body, so to speak, from the physical body. And the spirit is all of those other bodies, which are not the physical body. It's with us during our lives, and when we die, it continues to survive. That's the spirit. It's a real thing.
Well, what can I say? Last time I was with you all, I mean, I could hardly get home. It's so fascinating, and it's heavy duty, but it's just awesome. We're going to do another show the end of March, hopefully, and we're going to do a continuation. And I just wanted this show to educate the audience and to make Nikolai, God bless him, more believable. And I want to thank our great crew. We have a darling crew. Of course, they're all men except for Suzanne, so I have a lot of competition with her. And it's all volunteer. And of course, I thank all of you, and I'll see you next month. And thank you, our audience, for watching. And guess what? I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.